My name is Derek Newby. It's my pleasure to call this meeting to order. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come here for the Pine Bluff Coffee with the Chiefs. ICVR has brought together this meeting in order for the faith community and the public safety community of Pine Bluff to collaborate in order to make Pine Bluff a better place for all of us. And your time and your attention to all the matters that are set forth during these meetings help improve our community and make Pine Bluff a better and safer place for all of us to live and flourish. We have a panel put together for you today, and we're going to be dealing with some issues that have been in the news. Before we get into our meeting, then we're going to ask Reverend Turner to come forth and welcome everyone, and then we'll have a prayer before we begin.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. We are happy to be home. This is my home church. I met with our pastor on yesterday, and he told me I was in charge. So I'm in charge this morning. But I want to just say on behalf of our pastor, the Reverend Dr. Harold Shirley, the church family here at Pleasant Grove Baptist Church, we want to welcome you to this Coffee with the Chief. This church has been a church that has been involved in the community, and certainly we are happy to be able to host this for the community. This is an issue that has been highly publicized, and of course, as communities, we want to build relationships, collaborations, things where both cities can work together to bring jobs to this area that will benefit the citizens of each community. So as we come to grapple this morning with this issue, we have officials here that can give us clear and direct information regarding the zip code, the census count, as well as how we collect taxes. So with that being said, I'm going to ask our good friend and pastor, Jerry Williams, who is the jurisdictional secretary for the Church of God in Christ here, to come and offer a word of prayer for us this morning.
God bless you. Can we all just bow our heads for a brief word of prayer? Father God, we thank you this morning for this privilege and this opportunity thou hast granted us that we may come together this morning. And first of all, we'd like to offer a word of thanks. We thank you for our mayor, law enforcement, our city officials, and all that they are doing in our city. Thank you for Pleasant Grove, who has allowed us to come and gather here. We ask today that our gathering would be fruitful and beneficial to our community and to all who are a part of this. We pray that brotherly love would continue. We pray for those who work in our community to make it a better place, to make it a place where people will want to live, raise their families. And we thank you for this opportunity now. And we pray, God, that while it's on our watch, that we would be faithful and diligent to do those things that are pleasing in thy sight and those things that would benefit our community, that we can all give your name the praise and the glory and the honor. In Jesus' name we pray this morning. Let everyone say amen.
Amen. Could I have any aldermen who are present right now please stand and introduce yourself to everyone, please?
Ward Alderman Stephen Mays, Great City of Pine Bluff. Good morning.
Bill Brahman, Ward Alderman.
Thank you. Y'all give them a round of applause. As any ship weathers a storm, it's always good to have a good captain at the helm. And as any city proceeds to greatness, it's always great to have a great mayor at the helm. It's my pleasure to bring to the podium now our mayor, the Honorable Mayor Debbie Hollingsworth.
Those are kind words to opening up this meeting. Thank you. We do have another elected official within our midst, our city treasurer, Greg Gustick, if you would like to stand and everybody say hello to him. And again, welcome, welcome, welcome. And I'm going to have to say that I believe that information, accurate information is the key to making very good decisions. When you think about our history, the battles that were won were based upon accurate intel, accurate information. When you look at how our nation was founded, it was founded on good information based upon good, wise decisions from our founding fathers. So with that, I applaud ICVR for bringing together 3 different agencies today. We have got the U.S. Postal Service, Mr. Ballantyne. We have U.S. Census Bureau, Ms. Pitchford, which we have met with before, lovely lady, and Department of Finance Administration, Roberta Overman, which I have not met, but look forward to hearing what she has to say. And with that, I would like to say that I do believe that the information today will provide our community with accurate information so that we can make good decisions that's based upon good decisions for our future as to if there is an impact, if there's not an impact, what does a zip code actually mean for our city or to our city? And again, I think it also provides us with the platform or the stage today that we're talking about 2020 census. This sets the stage for that. We are beginning to think ahead for an accurate count, and Ms. Pitchford will speak to that. But the 2010 census and the response that we got to that was well below average. So I applaud each and every one of you for being here today. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being passionate about our city, loving our city, and making sound decisions for our city. Thank you.
As you can see on your agenda, we have a program plan, and the format will be as so. First, we will have the first 3 speakers you see, Nathaniel Ballantyne, Tony Pitchford, and Roberta Overman, to speak to you for about 5 minutes each. During that time, we respect that you hold your questions. You can write them down if you'd like. After each one of those people have had the opportunity to speak, then you will have the opportunity to ask questions to the whole panel, which consists of those 3 named, and additionally, Tom Ashley, the Excess Tax Administrator from the Department of Finance Administration, Stephanie Stratton from the Jefferson County Tax Collector's Office, and Yvonne Humphrey from the Jefferson County Assessor's Office. Please respect the program as it is. Thank you very much, and I call my first speaker to the podium.
Good morning. Looks like I got more than 5 minutes. Okay, I'm Tony Pitchford. I am the Data Dissemination Specialist for the United States Census Bureau, and I am your specialist. I represent and cover Arkansas and the state of Missouri as well. This question of zip codes came into the regional office, and it was passed along to me, and I've been working with the city and Reverend Turner since. I've also spoken with Alderman Mays when we met. How are you? And let me start by working with the zip code issue. The United States Census counts efficiently as the residents will let us. We count residents within the boundaries of the city of Pine Bluff. The zip code has nothing to do with the census count. The postal population identifies out how they're delivering their mail and the population within that area for where they are delivering. For the United States Census Bureau, our count is based upon the boundaries for the city of Pine Bluff. We do not extend over, nor do we allow count to go into another city. If it is not in the boundary of Pine Bluff, we do not count them outside of Pine Bluff. That'll get us started. That'll get us started, because I saw some eyebrows go up. So usually that's a good sign. When I talk about the boundaries for a city, let me say this. We work with the cities. We do boundary annexation And we work with the city geography staff to identify out. We send our maps to the city and ask them to identify that our boundaries are correct. Once those maps are sent back to us, we match them up and we identify. If we see something that we are not sure of, we send it back. But we work with the city to make sure that the boundaries of the city are accurate. Yes.
Can everyone hear?
Can you hear me?
I saw some people saying they couldn't hear.
I can put my grandmother voice on. Hold on. I got it.
Let's see if that is that.
Okay. Okay. Wait till I tell my director folks couldn't hear me. Okay. Grandma voice. We work with the city. Once the city sends us their information in regards to the boundaries and the annexations that they have done, or if they have given land, not given, but if they have dispensed land into another area, we get that information from the city. And that is how we go about counting representatives in the city of Pine Bluff. We work with the city to identify out where we should be counting to make sure that the numbers are where they're supposed to be. I will take questions on that when the time comes, but I wanted to make sure that everyone understands that the postal zip code population has absolutely nothing to do with the count that the Census Bureau uses in order to count the representatives within that city. Every resident, from the youngest to the oldest, that is within the boundaries of Pine Bluff are counted in Pine Bluff. I want to turn over to 2020, just in case I don't get to use all of those 10 minutes. 2020 census is coming upon us really, really quick. And I had already spoken with the mayor and I'd spoken to Alderman Mays about it. And the fact of the matter is that to get a better count, I believe that we need to start preparing the residents of the city to understand what the census means to them, not only on a 10-year basis when you're doing the redistricting of your congressional seats, but also the fact that $430 billion a year is distributed based on the population. And we need to start informing residents right now about what the census means. There is a dollar amount attached to every person in the city. That amount is standardized for the next 10 years. So what we need to do is start what we call building complete count committees, where every segment of the community comes together and we go into the communities and we talk about what the census does, how it affects them. It affects their roads, the schools, your medical care, your hospitals. So when we start working together, and word of mouth is the best place to start. Every 10 years, as we're doing the commercials on television, people see it and they think, oh, they go away. They're just here for a minute. But the impact is something that people need to be aware of. They need to know that once we get an accurate count, you get an accurate amount of money into the community that helps with the services that are provided by the administration of Pine Bluff. I am your representative and I will come to you when you call upon me. I will speak when you ask me to speak. I will identify, do workshops and trainings. I will even set up webinars to help individuals understand. Now, we're not just out there every 10 years. 365 days a year, we're in the field finding information that helps our congressional representatives to identify the bills that need to be passed and to help identify where services need to be either decreased or increased. We contain your privacy. We hold your privacy dear. We do not share our information with anyone. That information, and if you will look at the Constitution, we are the only governmental agency in the Constitution of the United States of America we hold your privacy close. When we get the word out that we don't care if there are 12 people in a one-bedroom apartment because we can't go back to housing and say, you know, they got 12 people over there. We can't do that. We don't do that. But the fact that there are 12 people means that there is money for those 12 people, and they should be counted within the city because that money belongs here. An issue that came up previously was the fact of where our college students are counted. Please know that if a college student is living in Pine Bluff 6 months, 1 day, they should be counted here. That money should come into Pine Bluff. So our college students, whether on campus or off, should be counted here to make sure. I see Pine Bluff's finest in the room. They may need more police officers to assist them. They may need more fire representatives to assist them. But if there is not an accurate count, you cannot expect the money from Congress to come into the city to help you with what you need. So building a complete count committee, it means bringing on ministers, business people, elected officials, community organizations. It means every aspect. Your Hispanic population, everyone needs to be involved to make sure that the money that is due to Pine Bluff comes to Pine Bluff. I thank you so much. I think my time is up.
Briefly pause for a moment. I want to recognize two additional aldermen who have entered the room. If you could please stand and introduce yourself.
I'm George Still, 4th Ward Alderman. Alderwoman Thelma Walker, 1st Ward. This is 1st Ward, too.
Thank you. Next I have for you Roberta Overman, who is the manager for the sales and the use tax section.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Okay. I'm Roberta Overman, and I'm manager of the sales and use tax section for the Department of Finance and Administration. One of our responsibilities is to collect the state and local taxes along with many special additional taxes for businesses in your community. Since 1981, we have been collecting local taxes for, there's over 350 local taxing jurisdictions now that we're responsible for collecting the local taxes for. When the local taxes were first enacted, a 4-digit numeric code was assigned to each taxing jurisdiction by the state treasurer. So, for example, Jefferson County, their numeric code is 3500, and all the cities within Jefferson County have the first designation of 35 and then a secondary 2-digit number that was assigned by the treasurer. For example, Pine Bluff is the code 3501. That is how local taxes are reported to DFA. When businesses collect the taxes at the point of sale on both the sale of tangible property or services such as your electrical service, they collect that local tax and then they report it to us using those 4-digit codes. Okay, that's how the information comes into DFA. We accumulate that information throughout the month by processing those tax returns, and we provide that local tax collection by that 4-digit code for either a city or a county to the state treasurer's office. State treasurer's office then deducts any fees and distributes the local tax money back to the local communities. DFA does provide an address-based lookup, and I've got some handouts up here of both local tax collection data along with a screenshot of this address-based lookup. Jefferson County, City of Pine Bluff, Whitehall, they have all been fully mapped. This address lookup is based on the physical address, the street address. And you can enter an address and look it up, and it'll return to you whatever the state, city, and county rates are. So I encourage you, if you have any addresses within your community that you're not sure where that local tax is being designated for, use this address lookup. If you find any errors in it, please let us know, because this is created by the Geographical Information Office on our behalf. We do keep it maintained. They update it all the time as new addresses are added, as city boundaries change. So if there are mistakes in it, we need to know so we can notify them to get that correction made. This is the information that retailers are supposed to rely on to determine which city and county rate to charge. So it's important to us that this information be correct. This data has been built off of a variety of information by the GIS office. They use the city boundaries, annexation records. It's the same thing as your 911 addresses come from. Tom, do you know of any other? There's multiple layers, highway department information. There's multiple layers that they use to determine the correct boundaries for the city that's used for the local taxes that we collect. I've also brought a screenshot of, this is the local tax collection data. This information is available to the public. It gives you tax collection histories for all cities and counties that we've collected. This report that I brought is a new report that we started producing beginning in January of this year. This is the version I brought is the most recent data. It's for the July distribution for both Jefferson County, Pine Bluff, and Whitehall. This is business classification collection data where we can disclose it. There have to be at least 3 businesses in a particular business classification for us to be able to disclose the data. It will tell you what the tax collections are, both the sales tax and the use tax, along with any rebates or if we have any large one-time payments or refunds as a result of an audit. Most people don't realize that there's a lot of activity in the use tax area, which is tax that's collected on purchases made from out-of-state suppliers who are not registered to collect our tax. Those are typically business purchases, where you may have a business area that's making purchases of equipment or machinery from out of state, and they owe the Arkansas tax on that. They're required by law to remit that tax. Also, you may or may not realize that internet purchases are subject to sales tax by the purchaser if the seller's not required to collect the tax. So there's a lot of use tax activity in the business sector. So a lot of people aren't familiar with what that represents. I'll hold off on anything else unless there's questions.
I have a question, Roberta.
Do you want me to take questions now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You indicated here that this is to look up the tax code.
On this one, the address lookup?
Address lookup.
Yes, sir.
If a business comes in from outside of their taxing jurisdiction. Okay. Yeah. My question is that we got the address lookup, and that address could also be used by the vendors. Is that what you're saying?
Are you talking about this address lookup? This is the address lookup that all registered taxpayers are required to use to confirm whether the tax rate is correct that they're charging. So all sellers should be using this even if they're outside of your city.
But if I come into a taxing jurisdiction, it's not my taxing jurisdiction, and I got my computer set up based on the address of the business and where I'm going, and most of the vendors, as I understand it, have the address keyed in that when they go into a taxing jurisdiction, then automatically when they put that address in, it's going to pull up where this city is located. And if it shows Whitehall, and these people actually live in Pine Bluff, how can Pine Bluff be assured they're going to get that tax rather than the local tax going towards Whitehall?
Well, we do get those types of inquiries on a regular basis from both cities and counties, and along with customers. Customers are calling and let us know that they've been charged an incorrect rate, as well as cities ask us to look into that. If we know of a business that is not using the address-based lookup tool and they're relying strictly on the name of the city, let's say that the person's address says Pine Bluff, but they're really in Whitehall or they're really outside the city limits completely, then we'll address that complaint with the taxpayer.
Here's what I'm concerned about, Roberta. That if a customer don't call in and request this information, then maybe they don't understand that all they know is that they're being charged their local taxes, which most of the city has a local tax and county tax. The concern that I have by using a zip code and a customer don't understand that I need to call in and question this local taxes, what prohibits that tax from going to Whitehall when it should have been designated for Pine Bluff?
Well, a seller is not permitted to just use the 5-digit zip code to determine the local tax that should be collected. A seller is required by law to use this address lookup. They have to use the address lookup.
But now, let's get real there now. After being with the department 37 years, what seller is going into a taxing jurisdiction when they know there's a local tax and all they're responsible for is collecting it? I don't think that they're going to take the time to try to look up this code here to see who gets a local tax when all they're doing is reporting what they collect. My concern is, and it doesn't have anything to do with your department, and you got some procedures in place, if a taxpayer doesn't call you, or if a vendor doesn't call you, and they got their computer set up when keyed in by addresses, which what you're going to find most of the vendors are doing, because when they go into a situation, they key that address in, that local tax jurisdiction going to pull up by those 35, 01, 02, 03. And that's what they're going to report on. I'm saying this, because of the way the makeup is and what the responsibility is for the vendor and the taxpayer, that I think that Pine Bluff is losing some tax dollars based on the widespread of that zip code being all over this city. And that's my concern. And I know you got some things here in place, but there's no guarantee that you could govern this based on what a vendor is supposed to do. And that's just a concern that I have in the city with this local tax, is that when a vendor comes into this city and that address pulls up, that local taxes, they're going to put up that code, and it's not going to be Pine Bluff, because most of the businesses and things now and the vendors are going by addresses, and when they key that address in there and it says Whitehall and people actually live in Pine Bluff, I'm afraid that the Whitehall local taxes is what's going to pop up, and that vendor is going to report that local tax.
I can't speak to what all the sellers are doing. I can only tell you what the law requires them to do. The law requires them to use our address-based lookup. It's not driven by zip code. And if sellers are relying on the 5-digit zip code, they would be incorrect in doing that.
But it still doesn't negate the fact that Pine Bluff has lost a lot of taxes, I believe, because you're saying that they're incorrect.
Right.
That's my concern, and that's the real issue that I have by using the zip code on a broad scale as it is. We just recently had a situation where a taxpayer called in and was trying to get some services in Pine Bluff that were provided to some of the citizens in Pine Bluff but not provided in Whitehall. And he argued back and forth with the vendor. I don't live in Whitehall, I live in Pine Bluff. They said, no, this address pops up when we keyed in and it says Whitehall. We cannot provide you the services. Now, if that's happening in certain situations, I strongly believe that by using this zip code, and certain vendors are doing it, and you're saying that if they called in, if the taxpayer called in, then you can correct them, and you have the mechanism in place. But I just don't believe that a vendor is going to stop at every location when they come in and do repair, sales, and service to a destination, that they're going to go back and look in their computer and see what address should go. And I know it is a problem, and it is a serious problem that we have, because if we lose any local tax dollars, it hurts this city.
I can't speak to those facts, George.
Okay.
All I can tell you is that we have a mechanism in place for vendors to rely on. It's what they're required to rely on. Some of these issues are detected when an audit is done. We do work with cities oftentimes to provide listings of businesses. When the city requests it, the mayor's office is welcome to request that from us, of a listing of businesses that report their tax. We can't give the dollar amounts. As you know, those are protected under our confidentiality records. We do provide this next code information, and we're happy to work with the city on complaints that they may have, or particular businesses they might want us to contact to verify whether or not the proper tax is being collected, and we're happy to work with any cities and counties on that.
I respect this information, and I appreciate you all for coming. That's why I wanted to come. I know Tom and I know Roberto. I worked with him a number of years, so there's no way that I would come in here and accuse you of anything. But I'm just talking about the reality of what the zip code is doing, I think, to the city, to the local taxes in this area.
We have a question here, then a question here.
Based on what he says that he believes, over the years, just a span of years, have you found that to be true? And to Mr. Steps, what evidence do you have that would indicate that out of all of your years of working there, did you find that to be the case? And to Ms. Overton, have you all discovered what he's saying about city losing taxes to be the case? Have y'all discovered that on a wide range?
Well, I can't speak directly for Pine Bluff or this particular area. What I can say is that our office routinely receives taxpayer complaints. It's particularly in the telecommunication industry where they've gotten charged a city tax and they live outside the city. And we address those issues on a regular basis. If we discover a retailer or a provider of taxable services who doesn't appear to be collecting the proper amount of local taxes, we ask field audit to go in and examine their books and records and make that determination. It happens every day. It's an issue we deal with every day.
As I indicated, I worked with the Department of Finance and Administration for 37 years, and 26 of those years was in the managerial position. And I know that when auditors went out to do audits, that we found this error to be widely spread, because what taxpayers were doing, we had so many local taxes that was involved, and it was getting difficult for them to keep up with because of all of the different local taxes. What you would find that the vendor would dump them in all kind of categories, because it didn't matter to them where the tax was going along. They was collecting and reporting.
But you say that you believe that.
Yeah, because I know that. Yes.
Okay. All right. When you were there, did you see the Whitehall Pine Bluff issue? Did you all address that?
Well, what happened, you could only address it in the audit, because that was the only way that you knew specifically that it was taking place. And of course, it was addressed in the audit, and it was corrected at that point. And as Roberta stated earlier, if there's an audit that is done, then they can correct it. If a taxpayer calls in and says that I don't think I'm paying the correct amount of taxes, then they can correct it. But the concern I have, Reverend Turner, is that when these cases doesn't take place, what happens?
Okay. Next question is from Alderman Mays.
See, you all use the GIS, Geographic Information Office. Hey, good morning. The boundaries. Okay, I was talking with Seth Master with the Arkansas Geographic Information Office, and they did a strategic plan that's saying that because of the boundaries are out of date and haven't been updated in this area in like 20 years, he says this is what he wrote. This, if you all use, I got some maps too as well. We're going to show on the 7th of August, Thursday at St. James United Methodist Church, which shows 1/4 of Pine Bluff has the Whitehall 71602 zip code. 1/4 of Pine Bluff has it, and it's a major confusion. But it says, this is what Seth gave me. He said, because of the boundaries have not been updated and the cities are crossing over into each other, it says these maps need to be updated and accurate as possible, and it needs to be digital. City boundaries are challenging to maintain in the state database, partly because of the volume. It says for the calendar year 2011, 49 cities filed annexation of record that changed their boundaries, which resulted in the change of the state maps. Then he says, we anticipate that in the approach of the 2020 census, a number of cities will annex areas in order to increase their population beginning in the year 2016 to 2018. So that's what we're trying to cut off right now. This is what's happening. So how important are the city boundary lines, and what do the city boundary lines mean to a city? It's for you both.
Do you want to speak to
The city boundary lines are most important for collection of taxes by not only Arkansas businesses, but all of our out-of-state registered businesses when they're shipping merchandise to Arkansas. Roberta and I are not the experts on annexations. But in Arkansas, when your city votes and annexes or your council approves an annexation, you're required by state law to report that to the Secretary of State's office. That's how it officially becomes part of your city boundary area. The information office, Geographic Information Office, who prepares all kinds of geographic reports and analysis, uses those recorded annexations to update their record. The Geographic Information Office prepares our lookup base based on their information, which is primarily based on each county in Arkansas using centerline mapping technology to decide for each address in our state which jurisdiction it is in. Our base then, when you look at that address, regardless of zip code, regardless of city label, will tell you which local to collect. If you went out and played with that base, you'd find that in Arkansas you've got many cities that share zip codes with other cities. Most common, really nationwide. Zip codes may cross county boundaries. There's some cases where zip codes actually cross state lines. I never thought of that. So if you're a seller, you can't use zip code. And in the last 10 or 15 years, it's gotten very sophisticated nationwide. Of our 70,000 registered businesses, over 15,000 are outside our state. And they collect a large portion of our tax. So when you buy from California, how do they collect Pine Bluff tax? They look at the address they're shipping the merchandise to, and their sophisticated systems will then determine which tax is to be collected. And that's how big business operates. A small business that may travel here occasionally, do a service job like George said, they may make a mistake. There's no question about that. But we want to work with those folks to make sure that they do the right job. So anytime a citizen of our state, we get many, many calls, they think they've been charged the incorrect tax rates, we check those out. But address-based systems are the only way it works. And in the last 15 years, almost all large corporations in the United States and many small ones use an address-based system. Either they develop, they use our data. Our lookup base is available to input addresses, but our large businesses, they download the data files and input that into their computer system. And when they sell and ship to Arkansas, their computer determines, based on that address, which taxes to collect. And that's what they report. The concept of zip, if you'll think through it, there's a 4-digit extension on the zip. What is that used for? Well, we're not the Postal Service, but the zip is a method to deliver mail. It helps the postal carrier decide where to take that mail. In most city blocks, if you will take that 4-digit extension, you'll find that on one side of the street, every house has that on a street. Every house has the same 4-digit extension. Why? The postal carrier can take the batch of 4-digit extensions and know every one of these envelopes goes in the mailbox on this side of the street on this block. The next block up will be one number high. Across the street, if I'm an odd number across the street, they're even numbers. So zip codes are used to deliver mail. They don't have any bearing on if you're inside a city boundary, inside a county boundary, or actually, are you in the state of Arkansas? Because rural routes all have the 4-digit extension, the same one, it can go for miles, and that rural route, dirt road, can cross the state line. And so, we have 70,000 registered businesses reporting monthly sales taxes. We have 73 counties in Arkansas with local sales tax. We have 301 cities. We have businesses report each month 200 or 300 local government taxes on their monthly tax returns. One thing to remember when you're dealing with local tax, many of your sellers that collect it reside right here. They're in the city limits. When I go to the local supermarket, I purchase everything in the store. I receive the merchandise at that physical location, so they collect the city where I'm in. The problem is not your local sellers necessarily, it's those who ship merchandise to your communities. They don't reside here. They may reside out of state, they ship it here. Or they may reside in Arkansas. They may be in Harrison, Arkansas, and ship merchandise to Pine Bluff. If they do that, they have to collect the Pine Bluff and Jefferson County taxes, not the Harrison, Arkansas, and Boone County taxes. So sellers in Arkansas are collecting many jurisdictions. Does every seller do it perfect each time? I can't tell you that. We're there to help them know if there's any issues. And we want the citizens or state contact if you notice a seller with difficulties. Because that's the process in Arkansas and has been for many years. So, back in the olden days to me is the 1980s when local started. And it really was the same way nationwide. Back in the early 1980s when the local sales taxes started in this country, things were sophisticated. We didn't have computers. Businesses did it manually. But over time, like our address lookup base, all states that are involved with local taxes have those tools. And we have retailers in this country that have thousands of transactions per hour that are shipping merchandise nationwide. And so you can imagine their difficulty and their issues they deal with on collecting local. But anytime you see a seller that's charged the wrong rate to you, bring that to our attention, because we'll talk to them about it. They don't want to collect the wrong tax. All that can do is harm them if there's a problem. And that's one of the things that most businesses guard against, trying to collect the correct tax.
Thank you.
Just one question, it won't take but 30 seconds.
You promise.
Tom said something I think that proved my point. I didn't say sales from, I said sales to. And you were talking about an out-of-state vendor, some of the bigger corporations. That happened to a taxpayer here in the city. It had the address, and it came in because it said Whitehall. They shipped it back to the company, and when he began to call, and they said there's no such street as that. And so you proved my point when you stated that the out-of-state and the out-of-town vendors could possibly get it wrong a whole lot of time, because it's going to be dependent on sales too. We don't have no problem with sales from, because those people know where they are, and they going to report that. But sales too is the problem.
That is more difficult.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of your activity is not that way. It's local people. That's why address-based systems that proliferate around the country, all the big county companies, all the streamlined states, this is what we use to try to provide the correct tool. So it's important, if you annex, to get it recorded. Secretary of State's office, get it part of the official record that this is in your boundary. It will then show up in our address list. And go from there.
Thank you, sir.
Can I say something for 30 seconds?
In one moment, the mayor has a question she's been holding, please.
Now we have.
Alderman Mays, the mayor has a question she's been holding.
Excuse me, Mayor.
One of the things I'd like to say is for the amounts that we might accidentally miss because of inaccurate reporting, and Alderman Steps, you and I have talked about this. I do think on the other side of the equation, we receive taxes that might be inaccurately reported. So I think you've got a check and balance there, that we receive some inaccurately, we don't receive some. So I think that there is a balance there that you have to balance out. And is that amount that Mr. Steps is referring to, is that an amount, or have we identified that amount to know, is it a real problem that we've been talking about for 2 months now, 3 months now? I don't know that question. Answer.
Okay. We'll proceed with further questions.
Now we have a lot of taxes, sales taxes, internet taxes, federal taxes, city taxes, state taxes, franchise fees, cell phone taxes, utility bill taxes, which, okay, now how does that affect if the boundaries are not in order with that zip code? Because a lot of people, I have people come out of their houses in an area showing me their bills with utility bills with Whitehall, Arkansas, 71602 on their utility bills, on all of their mail. Now, does that, we're just talking about sales taxes here, right? Well, what about the rest of the taxes? How will that affect our city? Do you give information about that?
Yeah. I would just say that we don't have any information on taxes that aren't collected by our office. We're responsible for the sales, state and local sales taxes. We also collect additional taxes such as short-term rental taxes and things like that. They're all collected in the same manner. As far as the other taxes, I can't speak to that.
So the franchise fee,
we don't have any information on that.
I have a question from the back. Please stand.
I don't need the microphone. I would like to make a suggestion. Since we've wasted time in this city now for about a month on this issue, that those who wish to pursue it, stop talking about it, get on the streets, get the data, and prove your point, or shut up about it.
Was that a question, or you got in, you want to reprimand somebody?
Yes, that's a good point.
No, wait a minute, Joe. We got an issue here that we feel very strongly about, and I don't think we're wrong. And for you as a taxpayer in this city, to get, hold it, Joe, for you to get up and tell somebody to reprimand and take some things, that same thing on you too.
Okay.
No.
Alderman Steps.
All right, we appreciate it. This is a hot topic. This is something that we need to discuss, but we need to do it in a way that we leave out here as friends, because we are in the house of God. Can Mr. X?
Yes.
Can I go to bed on Monday and wake up on Tuesday and find out I've been annexed to another neighborhood? Or is there a way that I can be, my community can be annexed to another community without public input, without all of the other things that need to go to place?
Well, the Department of Finance Administration, we're not involved with annexation. Arkansas state law provides guidance to cities as to the procedures, rules, and what they have to do to annex areas within their community. Arkansas law also requires them to notify the Secretary of State's office and record that information before it officially becomes part of the jurisdiction of the city, or that's my understanding. Then information, you have publicly made that information available to everyone who uses the bases. We've already used our address base as an example. Where does that information come from? Many sources, but the number one source is the centerline data for this county. What's centerline data? The number one use, besides election boundaries, is for 911 services. When you call 911 here in Pine Bluff, how does the 911 people get people to your location to help you? Every physical address in Arkansas has an address that is known to the 911 people. Has no bearing on which county it's in or which city. It's an address with geographical points, longitude and latitude. Our tax system is based on that same thing. The only county I'm aware in Arkansas that is not centerline mapped at this time is Newton County. Newton County is on the border with Missouri, a very remote, very small community, county, and they are working towards that goal. But in Arkansas, when we went on 911 services, many things had to happen. One of the main things happened in Arkansas, we had to create a lot of new street names and road names. A lot of people live places there wasn't a road name. Oh, he lives out there on that road, you know, it's Charlie's Road. The person used to work for us, her last name was Triplet. They lived on a road that didn't have a name. What's it called today? It's Triplet Trail. It had to have a name so 911 could point that spot. So, emergency call, they know where to go. Our tax is the same way on that lookup base. It's at that spot. Which jurisdiction is it in? And all that information is known. So, taxation is not simple, especially for thousands of sellers that sell nationwide. There's over 10,000 locals to collect in the United States. We have sellers that collect every one of them. So, they occasionally make mistakes. Probably. We audit, we assist them, and we assist the customer. Let's get right.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Stratton and Ms. Humphrey, did you have any statements that you'd like to make with respect to our panel?
We have just a couple. We just want everybody to notice, it is not, I'm
Okay, what we really want to say is we understand that there is maybe some tax issues, but I think Mr. Steps and this gentleman here understand that the issue they have is with a different department. There are audits done, I'm sure, everywhere. We do an audit. There are taxes that we collect and that we're audited on to make sure we have the taxpayer in the correct school district. It's not by zip codes.
Legal descriptions.
By legal descriptions, and yes, sometime occasionally, we do it wrong. We have been corrected by our auditors. We have the consumer that draws things to our attention. We correct them as they come upon us. We have audits, in-house audits that we go through daily. People change addresses 3 and 4 and 5 times a year. So us keeping them in the correct school district with their taxes collected, it makes a difference.
Plus the taxes are your behind.
Right. The revenue office contacts us when you pay your sales tax to make sure they're inside and outside the city limits. The Census Bureau, when they're in our city, they come in and I must say they bug us to death to make sure they're in the right district, the boundary lines. Yes, the maps may have not been drawn for 20 years, but that costs money. The county and our city, y'all already know, we use GIS also. We do the best we have with what we have. Yes, mistakes will be made. As far as the utility bills, you may need to contact the Attorney General to find out where these taxes are going. And I kind of agree with the gentleman here. Different entities make up your tax base. Find out what you have a problem with and seek to find an answer with them. And then see if we can't work some of this out. Because there will be issues all the time because we're human. There are computer glitches. There's a lot of things. So I hope we have explained what we do, how we do it. Stephanie, our office assesses the taxes. That's our job, to go out and find them. And it's hard to find some of these businesses. Really hard. They hide them.
I have a question for the whole panel. Really, is it even legal to collect taxes just based on zip code?
Oh, no. Just take the post office box. Anywhere you go, they ain't want no post office box, and it's 71601, 03, 11, and 13. They don't want your P.O. box, because they want to know where you live. The zip code has nothing to do with it. Are mistakes made? Yeah. Because people will give you any kind of address. They do that to us. They give us any address. But it's our job to find out where they live. It's our job to make sure that we have them in the correct school district. I don't work with the zip codes. We work with the correct school districts and our boundary lines. We have even, I'm gonna say this, we even have buildings, half is in one school district and the other half of the buildings in another school district. We have to do that.
So they get two separate bills.
So they get two separate bills. So like I say, it's a lot of scenarios with taxes. And we understand your concern. But a lot of us don't have the answer to your concerns. And you need to seek out the specialists in that area to find out what needs to be done. And I'm sure they're audited, we're audited to death. So, and another thing, like the gentleman said, you'd be surprised how many people come in and tell us, or write a letter. I have a neighbor down here, he got about 15 cars. Do y'all have as a car dealer?
Wow.
You know, so your neighbors will snitch on you, trust me. And then it's our job to investigate.
Thank you very much. Okay. I'll give our panel a hand, please. Yes, ma'am. We have an additional question.
Good morning. I thank the panel for coming. My name is Ronald Tyler, a retired citizen here in Pine Bluff. My question, I know we've had a lot of discussion about taxes, but the first presenter mentioned about the census and how important it is to Pine Bluff, Jefferson County area. I have two questions for her, if you don't mind.
Can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Yes. Would you share with us how much you estimate the undercount was for Jefferson County, Pine Bluff in the last census?
I don't have an answer for that. I can get back with you in regards to what your 2010 census and your 1990 census was. I'm sorry, 2000 census was, and I can tell you the difference from there. I cannot give you an accurate number. A lot of the response rate is based upon the residents within the city. So if we get a count of 48,000, that means that we got those numbers from the residents and the quality assurance checks that we do when we're trying to match up, when we have duplicate names in duplicate areas. I will get back to you if you will afterwards give me a number that we can contact. I'll set my computer up and pull that information for you.
The question was related to the 2020 census that you spoke of. It's going to be critical for Pine Bluff to have an accurate count of citizens who reside in this particular city and county for revenue sharing. I know that we're collecting taxes, but the bulk of our money, I believe, comes from the federal government to run our various agencies and support this particular county area. You mentioned that we have various populations within the county, Hispanic population. We have the other minority populations here. Some of our citizens who may not be citizens here legally, are they counted, and what can we do from that standpoint? I know immigration is always an issue. What can we do to encourage those individuals to report that they are living in the city and county without having to jeopardize their legal status?
That comes with information being given to the communities. We do not, I need to clarify this so that it's not taken wrong, because I see the press in the room. We want to count every person, whether they are a citizen or not, because They live in the city. They utilize the streets. They utilize the schools. They utilize the water, the electricity, the elected officials' offices. We count everyone, irregardless of their status. We do not share information with INS. When I say that we look to your privacy, we mean that. We cannot go back and say we found a house full of undocumented residents living in Pine Bluff. We don't do that. Whether you are a citizen or not, you live in the city of Pine Bluff. We need that count because that money belongs in Pine Bluff.
And my final question, I have recently been getting robocalls, well, I received a robocall that say that they are representing the United States Census. They want to know information. They call on a Saturday or on a Sunday. And I just wanted to know if that is in fact representation from the United States Census.
We are like a bad penny, I admit. It could be, but here's what you can do. Arkansas is now under the Chicago region. If you're getting calls and you're unsure of whether or not it is legitimate, please get your pencils ready. 630-288-9200. That is the regional office. You can always call and ask if we are calling. The American Community Survey has taken over what used to be your long form that was done every 10 years. We're now able to give you information on a 1-year, 3-year, 5-year basis. So if you're not sure, please feel free to call into the office, and whoever is making that call, they should tell you what survey they're calling about. If it's the American Community Survey, if it's the Current Population Survey, if it's the Housing Survey, the Medical Survey, if it's the Crime Survey, then you can tell whoever answers that line what survey you're interested in, and we have a dedicated manager in that office that can tell you if it is legitimate or not. So please feel free to call on us. And that's the same thing if they knock on your door. They should have ID. If they do not, you can always call and verify. Tell them to come back, but get a number, and it should be 630-288-9200.
Ms. Pritchard, I have one more question for you.
One question I have.
Yes.
Our last meeting, you spoke about some marketing funds available for our city and prepping our city for the 2020 census. So could you just very quickly touch upon that? Helping people to be informed and what they need to do, and we will have monies available for that.
Well, the census has not dedicated any money for that. In 2010, what we had was a program that organizations could ask for up to $2,000, and we would help market. They could use that to market the decennial census coming out. So that's something that could be in the works for the 2020, but it has not been identified as of yet. Okay. So the marketing ideas that we were talking about for me were to be able to get into the communities and to talk to the different areas, to talk to the residents, talk to community organizations, pull the trusted voices together. And there are things that we do all the time. We do block club parties, we do house parties, we do, I was at the hotel last night and there was a group of magnificent women having a meeting. They were very lively and very vocal, and that's another way to get the word out. But at this point, they have not finished the budget for the 2020 census, so we do not have, I'm your marketing tool right now. So if there's something that you want to know about the census, if there's a program, if there's something I can do to help spread the information, to help get the word out, use me, because I belong to you.
We have one more question for you. Then we'll have the names read of the awardees by our chief.
Ms. Pritchard, when we visited on the phone with the members at the City Hall, there's a number that keeps coming out in my head that I think you made a statement, something like that most communities have like an 85% participation rate. As I recall, I think you stated ours was like 60 to 65%.
Looking at the interactive map on census, www.census.gov. And you can see what the response rate was. The 85% and 85% rate prior to my coming to coming to Arkansas and Missouri. I was in Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana. So those numbers were relative to what we did. And my goal is to help bring Arkansas and Pine Bluff into the 80s. I'd like to see a 99.9%.
But if we picked up to 85, it would be pretty awesome.
I'm here to work with you.
The gentleman was asking a while ago, and I think he was hitting what a lot of us are more concerned about than anything, is making sure 2020 comes in where it really is, because we feel like it was off.
It was off.
And another point I want to make, and I'll sit down those, is that we have not had an annexation since 1998 in Pine Bluff. So as far as the boundary lines and so on are concerned, it's been that way for a long time.
Yeah.
We're not and our regional planning group right now are going over the boundaries and making sure that they are correct. But they have been audited and reviewed from time to time. And I think that they're probably going to find that we're in good stead there.
That's a wonderful thing. We still like to double check. It's that rather over check than under check. Please use me. I am your specialist.
I think here, a question I'd like to ask, what is being done, or what will be done in the next census to let people know that your privacy will be protected so people don't mind being counted? Because I'm sure there are those who are suspicious of the government, what you're really up to, that you're not just counting, you're doing other things beside that. So what is being done so that people understand that we're here for one thing alone, and know how many people are in your residence? That's it. Is anything being done to make sure that's out?
Well, we do, and in the package that I have provided, there is a brochure that talks about your privacy and what we do. The fact that there is a fine for any census representative that gives out your information. It's a hefty fine. Right now, I go back to the fact that word of mouth, trusted voices in the community, let me come in and talk to the community, let them ask me the questions on how we will not give out their information, how we cannot share their information. It is forbidden. So we do not share information, and that's something that needs to be reiterated on a consistent basis. For right now, until 2020, and we are recruiting, until right now, I am your voice. I am your voice to answer the questions in regards to the privacy issue as to how we count, what we count, and why we count. So I say again, use me. But we do have brochures. I have packets over here you're welcome to take. And inside those packets, you will find a privacy brochure as well as brochures of information that we have collected. We are the statistical bureau for the country. So for your privacy, I say to you that we do not share your information, none of it.
Also, one other thing I would ask that when this comes again, if there would be a collaboration between the churches and your office, that we can get it out to people what this entails, so that we can let our parishioners know, we get as much to the community as we can, that this is strictly a count. And I'd ask if you get maybe flyers, something we can post, or something we can pass out, so it'll be known to the community what this is all about.
Oh, definitely. And we believe in faith-based. I'm sorry. I'm just who I am, and there is nothing that does not come through the church. And I am guilty of the fact that I listen to my religious leader and hear his voice and then make my own judgments. But I trust that he is telling me what is good. So the religious base is basically one sure way of getting information out, because no matter what, the word travels. And when it comes from the podium, it travels even more. It also travels when you're talking to your community organizations, your women's organizations. The word goes out. So again, I reiterate, it's that slow process of people hearing it on a consistent basis and beginning to understand. I always use when Roosevelt was being relocated, and I know I'm taking your time. Roosevelt was being taken to another location for 2 weeks while the White House was being renovated. And he asked the Census Bureau for information from the 2-block radius of where he was going to be relocated. We could not share that information, and that was the White House. They took us to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court upheld the Constitution. We cannot share your information.
I just had one suggestion. I agree about the churches, and you know, that I agree that the churches are a very good mechanism to get this out to begin with, you know, way before the census starts. And also, I would like to suggest to you that some of the places where people get services, that they be notified so that they can get the word out. Because a lot of young people visit different places for services and utility companies and things like that. But they are afraid. And I think that that would help a lot.
I will come back at your request. Please, as I said, use me. I'll come back, I'll get information to you, I'll get brochures to you, and we can, if there is an organization where you want to sit down and talk about how to get this out, I am more than willing to sit and to work out a plan. Again, I work for Pine Bluff, I work for you.
I would love to do that because in the past census, I know that there were people that were in my county. And I tried to reassure them that it was okay, but you know, you can only read so many, but I would love to work with you.
So if we start now in 2014, by 2019, we ought to be good to go.
Okay, we want to let the chief call off the names here in a minute.
Thank you.
Our fine people here. We thank all of the officials, and I'm going to give this back to you. But Mr. Mays had indicated that he had a meeting on Thursday. Is there anything that you have different than what they're bringing, and is there any questions that you need to ask them before you leave so you can carry that information back?
We're just going to meet Thursday at 6 o'clock at St. James United Methodist Church, 900 University Drive. You're welcome to come.
Without further ado, Chief Eubanks, please come forward and read those names of our heroes in Pine Bluff.
Thank you. This was a meeting about the exchange of ideas, and what I'd like to do is change gears now and celebrate the people that do the do in this town. The police, the fire department. You'll be known by your works. You'll know the tree by the fruit that it bears. Works like that. That's what we're here to celebrate, is these new people that lay it on the line, call for or not. Now, in the interest of time, I'm not going to read a synopsis for each one. Can you assist me, Captain Hadley, please? With one exception. We have a civilian award is Miss LaBasha Harris, President.
Yes. Please stand.
So that we can admire you and embarrass you, please. An extraordinary young lady. Let me read what happened here. This is impressive. Written to Captain Hadley from Lieutenant Verdees. It's not very often that we find individuals who would take the time to help others, but on June 27th, one such individual came across Officer David Harrell's path when he was sitting on a call at 3107 Scott Avenue. Miss LaBasha Harris contacted police because she was behind a vehicle at an ATM, and the vehicle left suddenly, leaving their ATM card and money, $100, behind. She called police because she attempted to contact the person whose name was on the card by Facebook, but was unsuccessful. Officer Harrell found an address for the person, Jamisha Cates, And before he could make it to the address, Mecca advised Ms. Cates had called to report leaving her money. Officer Harrell was able to return her money only due to the actions of an honest citizen, Ms. Harris. I feel we need to recognize the actions of the good people we have in Pine Bluff, and this is definitely an example. Way to go, Ms. Harris. For actions above and beyond, Officer Justin Williams. Officer Keith Wright for actions above and beyond. Officer Jeremy Brown for actions above and beyond. Officer Christopher Fontanette, actions above and beyond. Officer Joseph O'Neill for actions above and beyond. Officer Mario Brown, actions above and beyond. Officer Jalindria Murray, again, actions above and beyond. Lieutenant Joe Paul Harrell, actions above and beyond. Officer David Harrell, above and beyond. I worked for his grandfather.
Wow.
Sergeant Sam Atkinson, actions above and beyond. Accepting on behalf of Officer Keisha Johnson for actions above and beyond. Also accepting on behalf of Sergeant Billy Dixon for actions above and beyond. And accepting on behalf of for Officer Rick Bunning for actions above and beyond. Thank you for your kind attention.
Deacon Robert Wright, could you please come forward?
On behalf of ICVR and Coffee with the Chiefs, we would like to present this plaque and certification or certificate to Pleasant Grove Missionary Baptist Church. We have so many churches involved in our community and in the efforts in which we're trying to do to provide help. And with that, we say thank you for opening your doors, opening your hearts, and inviting us in. Thank you very much.
We've had a wonderful, exciting meeting today. I'm sorry that we went over in time, but I think it was definitely worthwhile. I wanted to close by giving a special thanks to our alderpersons who were here today. Alderman Brummett, please stand. Mays, Alderman Walker, Alderwoman Walker, and Alderman Steps. And also a special thanks to Alderman Holcomb for attending as well. I want to give a special thanks to the people who prepared the food for us, of course. Thank you. Please give them a round of applause. And I think our bottom line in closing is, if there are tax dollars that are missing from Pine Bluff, just like with anything else, there's a responsibility also for our citizens to report it. And now we know the people that are here, that we can report it to, and we can work together as a community to make sure the tax dollars that are for Pine Bluff get to Pine Bluff. So let's report, and then we can solve the problem.